If you open this video, you're probably somewhere on a path towards an academic career. Or at least you're considering whether this whole postdoc application thing is worth it. And let's be honest, this is a tough journey. It's confusing, it's highly competitive, and nobody gives you a clear roadmap. But here's the good news. You don't have to go through it alone. I finished my PhD recently. I'm currently doing my first postdoc and applying for the second one. So while filming this video, I'm going through the application process myself. And everything I say is real, it's fresh, and it's based on my actual experience. So I want to share the things that really helped me throughout the process and things that I wish someone had told me earlier. If you're looking for an honest, practical advice how postdoc applications actually work, you're in the right place. Okay, let's start with the basics. Postdoc position, i.e. postdoctoral position, is the next step after completing your PhD. At least that's the case for physics or natural sciences. And there are two main types of postdocs. There are regular ones, where you join a research group and you're funded by a research grant from your supervisor. And there are fellowships, in which you bring your own external funding that's coming from an external source while joining a research group. The external sources for funding could be science foundations, like National Science Foundation, could be scientific collaborations, or some private institutions. Fellowships, like in my field, Mary Skłodowska-Curie Fellowship or the NASA Hubble Fellowship, generally give you more independence in terms of your research, and they are considered much more prestigious. But that means they are also much more competitive. So it is common for many people to get them as part of the second postdoc rather than the first one right after the PhD. But this is not the general rule, there are exceptions, so by all means apply to all the fellowships that you can find relevant to your research. When to start? People generally say start at least 1 year in advance, which is true for the formal process. So writing the application materials, asking for recommendation letters, and submitting the forms. In sciences, many of the deadlines start around September-October and last until December-January. So let's say you plan to defend your PhD in May 2027, that means you would have to start applying around September-October 2026. This is generally the period where most of the applications are open and they will be closing soon. There may be some openings afterwards, but the majority falls in this time between September and December. So make sure you look for that. But here's the trick. The actual preparation starts much earlier. You should start thinking about building your CV at least 1 to 2 years in advance. By building your CV, I mean not only the publications record, which should be the main focus of your PhD, but also attending conferences, giving talks, going on academic visits to other research groups and advertising your work there, trying to establish some new networks and new collaborations. I've heard the opinion that if you're applying to another research group where they don't know your name, they don't recognize your face, and they've never heard about your work, or they don't know your supervisor quite well, chances are you're not very likely to get an offer from them. So it is really important to get visibility early on in your PhD so that when people see you, they recognize you and they know of your papers, and you need to be proactive in that. So engage in discussions, go to talks, give the talks, and bother people with your work. Especially if there is a research group that you would particularly want to go to for your postdoc, think about visiting them much earlier. Try to reach out, to visit, give a talk, advertise your work, and maybe establish a collaboration early on. That is a real game changer in the applications. Whenever I traveled or I went back home or attended the conferences, I also tried to visit nearby universities and give talks in the research groups. That way I, for example, established one collaboration which ended up in a publication together. So try to think about this early on and plan out where you'd like to go. Whenever you have a new paper, try to advertise it as much as possible. Letters of recommendation. Here's the thing that nobody says, but your letters of recommendation can make or break your application. What I mean by this is having a strong letter from someone who knows you very well, but maybe less famous in the field, is way better than getting an average or very weak letter from a big-name professor that barely knows you. So this is important when trying to decide whom you want to ask. Usually you need 3 people to write the recommendation letter for you. One of them should be your PhD advisor, your research supervisor. If you have a co-advisor, that will be also perfect for a writer. But then you still need at least one person from outside your group to write a letter for you, and that's where the networking comes important. So if you work with someone from outside, they know how you work, they know what your skills are, they could be a perfect choice for a letter writer. So the first thing is decide whom you want to ask, reach out to them and ask if they would be fine writing a letter for you. Secondly, inform them about your timeline. So when are the deadlines for the applications you're planning to submit? And you should usually give them at least 2-3 weeks in advance to let them prepare the letter for you. To make it easier for them, provide them your CV as well. You can also send them your application materials drafts if you have them in advance, but at least CV should be a good reference point because they may not remember everything that you've worked on. And finally, you may have to remind them multiple times. So the way it usually works, when you submit an application, you need to provide the names and email addresses of the recommendation letter writers. And when you click submit, it will send an email to prompt them to provide the letter for you, which you're not going to see, of course, but at least you can usually check on the application portal whether the letter has been provided or not. And your application will be considered as complete only once all the letters are received. So bear in mind that you may have to keep reminding them to submit the letter for you, but it's perfectly fine. If they've agreed to write it for you, they will do that. Where to find job ads? Usually there's no single space that collects all of the information about the job postings available, but there may be a few websites, mailing lists that could be scattered around and collectively provide you a good source of information. In my case, I used a website called Academic Jobs Online, which I think is one of the most complete resources I've seen. I also signed up to mailing lists like Hyperspace mailing list, which is used for jobs within theoretical physics and astrophysics. So the best thing to do here is to ask people from your group, from your field, especially postdocs who have gone through the process at least once, so they would know all the secret places where you can find the information. There are also websites like rumor mills where people anonymously provide updates about their application process, which can also be a helpful source of reference. I would also recommend asking your supervisor to keep an eye out on their inbox if there is some informal job ad that has been circulated around between professors. Maybe they can also share it with you. Once you start writing, get feedback early. Reach out to your supervisor, to postdocs from your group, or any senior people from your department. But also reach out to university career services. They won't judge your science, because that's what your supervisor should do, but they can help you make your writing more clean and appropriate for such an academic audience. So you should constantly be going through the loop of writing, getting feedback, revising, getting another round of feedback, before you arrive at your final polished version of the applications. And that's a repetitive process that will take you at least a few weeks, because you also need to give time for people to read your application materials, so plan ahead enough of time to do that. Don't do this alone. If there is someone else in your research group that is also applying at the same time, form a support group. Share the deadlines, share the information. You can set common milestones and keep each other motivated throughout the process. Because this is a process full of frustration, confusion, and it's very emotional. So it's important not to stay alone in this. If you're the only one in your research group, try to reach out to other people. Maybe there's someone you met at a conference, or maybe there's someone from another research group, not exactly in your specific topic, but working on something similar that's also going through the process. Try to reach out to people, message them, and share all your frustration and share all your progress so that you're going through it together with others. This one is personal. The postdoc job market isn't perfect. It depends on so many factors like the timing, the visibility, the fact who knows you, but also on luck. So you may be excellent and still receive rejections, or you may be unsure about your application and still get an amazing opportunity from a place you didn't expect. So this is so important. Don't base your self-worth on this season. Don't attach your identity based on the acceptances or rejections you've received. This is such an easy trap to fall into, but it's so important to keep yourself detached from this thinking, to take care of your own well-being. If you're applying this year, please take a deep breath. Remember that nobody is fully prepared for this process. Everyone is scared of it. But if you've worked hard, you deserve this chance. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. I'll do my best to answer. Take care and good luck. You've got this.